Okay, everybody, this is my spoiler review of The Handmaid's Tale Season 6, Episode 5, Janine. This was directed by Natalie Light and written by Uba Mohammed. Another short episode here, only 43 minutes, so it's interesting how short the runtimes have been of this season. We are getting 10 episodes, but it does feel like from an older season's perspective, it would probably be 8 or 9 and longer length episodes. So let's start with everything with June and Moira, then we'll go to everything with Nick and finish off with Serena Joy and Aunt Lydia. Now we'll see June and Moira are undercover as Marthas. Conveniently in the story, Marthas have to cover their face now to make sense more of why people aren't recognizing June Osborne walking around. And they have Luke here undercover dressed as Oliver Twist. Luke will drop them off into Jezebel's, and they learn that Janine is in the penthouse and she's going to be with the commanders who weren't supposed to be there today. So it makes it more interesting. It makes it intense that they got to get this information to Janine, but the commanders are coming. Now, who doesn't love when Janine sings? And the great Madeline Brewer singing is great. And she sings What's Up by the Four Non-Blondes, which is a song people have been begging for to be put in the show because it just makes so much sense in the show. It's a great song. And I like how they did it. I like they had Janine singing it and didn't just play it. So I thought that was a nice surprise. And while she's singing it, she sees June. So they get a nice reunion. June and Moira inform her that they are Mayday and the plan is to go into action next week. But before they can get into more details, commanders show up. We see Commander Bell and he's ordering June to clean up the floor and then clean up him. But this is where Lawrence calls him a tool and June hears Lawrence's voice, so she knows that voice all too well. And they're in a very complicated relationship right now, her and Lawrence. But he doesn't recognize her yet. He doesn't see the front of her body. Now, Lawrence is with the other commanders at one point, and he's schmoozing up to them for a new Bethlehem expansion. And it's interesting that, again, clearly these commanders are giving him permission, but they're not supporting it. They correct him in that. And we'll see Janine cozies up to Lawrence, and this sets off Commander Bell. And Lawrence goes to take Janine into another room, and Lawrence calls Belle a pig, which is a great moment. And he's like, why are you here? No one here likes you. Now, where it gets a little silly for me is when Janine takes Lawrence into the room and shows him this secret peephole. It wasn't even the concept of a peephole. It's how they shot it, where they shot the peephole and it's like pulling away. And we see Lawrence is now listening to these commanders instantaneously at that moment, talking about him and their long-term plan of shutting down New Bethlehem and eventually putting him on the wall. You know, it just came off a little out of tone of The Handmaid's Tale, the way that was all shot. It just felt off and a little goofy, like something you'd see in like a Goosebumps episode. But this is big for Lawrence to hear because of their ultimate goals here. These commanders, we know they really don't buy into this New Bethlehem thing. They're just going by it on the sell that Lawrence is having and further improving relationships with foreign places. Now, June and Moira will tell Janine to prepare to get the woman out. And Janine gives them, the secret elevator, the key codes, all that stuff. And then, of course, June wants Janine to come with them tonight. And Moira's like, what? And Janine's like, I can't leave without my girl. So she shuts that down. But then Moira and June have their fight now. They air it all out, which was good to see. And Moira was pissed because she's like, you made me look like the bad guy there. And she's like, it's always June, 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 basically. And she's like, when do I get to have PTSD, guilt, friends, trauma? And then they kind of go on a trauma off here, but they're able to laugh about it. And June acknowledges she totally understands what Moira went through. And you see Moira is like, none of this basically should have happened to either of us. I like the line Moira says to her, though. I love you all the time, even if I don't feel like it, when June talks about how she probably hates her. Moira's line is exactly summing up how the audience feels about June. That you always love June watching this, but sometimes you don't feel like it. But in this moment, the creepiest of creepy guardians comes in, and he goes to sexually assault Moira. But June grabs the phone, gives Moira the head nod, and then Moira punches him, and then she gets a cool kill where she actually strangles him with the phone cord, which was pretty sick. Now Luke arrives to pick up June, but things get hairy with the Guardian. While that's happening, June and Moira are burning the body of the Guardian they just killed. Luke gets punched, sent away, so total fail on Luke's part, and Moira and June run into Lawrence in the parking garage. And he agrees to throw him in the trunk. And she's like, can you get us across the border? And he just closed the door. But again, I think he's obviously going to help them. I have no worries about how they're going to be with Lawrence. I think he'll be able to help, and this will force him to help more than get sidetracked by all his New Bethlehem stuff. Now, we're halfway through the season. First off, I just want to say, why on earth is this episode titled Janine? It totally makes you think something else is going to come. I'm watching this thinking something significant is going to happen with Janine. It doesn't. And I'm also thinking we're going to learn more about Janine, the character. We don't. So why is it titled Janine? It's very, very strange. And it's really frustrating. And I think it put my expectations higher, especially because all last episode was set up. And just to see what's going on here, this just felt like a Limbo episode setting up the attack that will come. So if you're not going to show us that attack, get us more into character stuff. They did a little bit with Moira and June, but it just felt like we're just going through the motions here at parts. And it really feels like it's got to seriously pick up now. So I was very disappointed in this story here, mostly with Janine, Moira, and June. And I think I've said this before, I miss hearing June's narration because I think there's so many scenes that could be great, especially even when she hears Lawrence's voice and what she's exactly thinking in that moment of him. I would have loved to hear, and what she's thinking of Luke. I think that was what made the first season and the book so special. So it's frustrating they dropped it completely, and I wish in certain moments I'd love to hear June's thoughts. Now let's go to everything with Nick. Now, Wharton will bring up to Nick the incident in No Man's Land, so they're addressing that because people I saw were upset they didn't last episode, but now they're addressing what happened with the killing. And he's like, it happened on your watch. And he says, one of the men that Nick shot point blank is still alive. So you're like, oh no. So Nick goes to see Toby, who is that man, and his mom. And the mom says to him, promise me you'll find out who did this to him. And of course, she has no idea it's the man standing in front of her. But Nick says he'll stay with him. And he's like, do you know me, Toby? And he's like, where's my dog? So Nick goes to leave, but he turns back in because I believe he thought, okay, that guy doesn't know where he is. He's asking where his dog is, but he's still able to talk. So I think he knows that this is still so risky and he's going to do something. Is he going to suffocate this guy in the pillow? Who really knows? We don't get that answer here, but yeah, I think Nick's about to do one of the darkest things he's probably going to have to do, or he's going to get put on the wall. Now, everything with Serena and Aunt Lydia, which was teased last episode by Aunt Lydia showing up to Serena. Aunt Lydia brings up to Serena her handmaids being put in Jezebel's house, how upset she is about this. And she says also to Serena, her girls suffered in her house greatly. But Serena replies and says, and in yours as well, which I love that she said that. Because at least Serena's at the point where she is admitting all the BS she did and faults and messed up stuff that went on in the past, where Aunt Lydia has always turned an eye to that and act like she's not part of it too, and that she's only part of the just part of everything. Now, Serena pitches to her that the handmaids can retire at New Bethlehem and become attendants at her new fertility center she wants to make. And I love she calls the handmaids a brand, and Lydia's so offended by that. And Lydia instead calls it a divine calling, and that's kind of like where Serena's like, sure. But Lydia encourages Serena to follow through with Wharton. She's like, politically, we need his support. And she says, quoting Pride and Prejudice, he is also a single man of good fortune in want of a wife. And that's when Serena points out that that is a quote that is of ultimate irony. And Lydia then even pushes the point of she's got a healthy womb and shouldn't waste it. It's interesting because if Lydia, it's setting up that she is going to get these handmaids to Serena, we have to see how these handmaids accept Serena's New Bethlehem, an area in this fertility center, and even if it's better, how better is it? So that's going to be kind of interesting, and where everything will end up with Serena in general, and see how we only have 5 episodes left. And speaking of Serena, we have the big moment here at the end where Wharton surprises Serena with a children's library, and she sees the picture of the library. In the name of the library, it's Serena Joy and Gabriel Wharton Library. So right there, she knows what he's about to do. He says, Fred tried to erase the best parts of you, but I would never do that. I want all of you. And Serena says, well, I will never stop writing. So again, she's hesitant to be a wife again. She doesn't want to lose everything she just worked to get back. And she's like, I believe God brought me here to change the country. She doesn't want to change locations because he goes all over the place. And he's just saying yes to everything. He's willing to do everything. And she's like, are you okay with raising another man's child? That's even the bigger question. And he's like, yes, yes, yes. So she says yes to him. I think what they're setting up is that Wharton is obviously in love with Serena, wants Serena. I think he's more progressive than Fred. I do think that's true. But I think a lot of this is him playing to get to Serena, and he'll deal with it later. The stuff he probably deep down does not agree with her. Because at the end of the day, the way he talked to Nick about Rose, he's still a very traditional man. And I think that will come into play towards the end. And usually we see Serena revert back her ways like she did with Fred, but I think she's actually going to have that choice to be with Wharton, who she probably loves and is given a lot of stuff she likes. But when she sees he starts turning a bit to some of his true colors, she's going to resist this time. I think that's going to be the wrap of her redemption arc and somehow help June in that. I really, really do, because I'm still sticking to that first episode with June pushing her off the train and getting her out of that danger. That will be good karma coming June's way. And they have to change kind of how Serena's choices have become and how we know her to have a full redemption arc and finish out her story in an interesting way. But overall, this episode was very disappointing to me. We're halfway through the season, and I feel like really it's dipping now. It dipped a little bit in episode 3, then it dipped last episode, but I'm like, okay, maybe it's just set up. And then now it's like, okay, no, maybe now it's just setting us up for an episode, like I said, where I feel like I'm a little bit in limbo, where I do think Serena's story progressed well, but I wish that June and Moira's story and what to do with Luke, it's just stuck. It's stuck, and it's not that interesting, and I'm not feeling the soul in the show. I think that's really what's missing, and I thought by it being titled Janine, we'd get that soul somewhat with the character of Janine. I mean, they literally set up the end of last episode talking about the little princess, and there's just no acknowledgement of that kind of story here for Janine here. She's just part of moving the plot along in this episode. So really, really strange. And that really takes a lot of points off for me too. So I'm giving this episode a 6.8, and I'm giving it some higher score than you would think because I did enjoy the Serena stuff. I did like the Nick stuff. I did like some of the Moira and June argument, but other than that, the peephole thing and some of these scenes just seem repetitive and we feel like we're in a loop. So I just want more at this point. I really hope 6 is a banger. We need it. We need it because I feel like we're losing some of the fans here. Like, we really got to step it up here. But I have faith still. We got half a season left. This is the final season, so stuff has to go down. Let me know your thoughts down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I read every comment. Try to respond as many as I can. Check out all the interviews I do with the cast. I did it with Yvonne Strahovski, Madeline Brewer, and Dowd together, Bruce Miller, the genius showrunner, and the red carpet. So check that out. Please follow me at Steve Varley Show on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok for more of me, and I'll see you next time.